Hey, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. I want to talk about the Ultimate series again. It's been a minute since I've focused on this series. I think the last one we did was issue 3 or something like that. And let me tell you, this universe, the more it's fleshed out, just keeps getting crazier, and there's so much cool stuff happening. So we're going to do a quick little recap of all the previous issues leading up to issue 9, and then I think by the time this video comes out, issue 10 should already be out. So let me know in the comments if you want to see a video about that, because I'm sure that one's going to be just as great. So starting with issue number 4, this one actually sees Doctor Doom's origin in this Ultimate universe. So this issue details the past of this version of Ultimate Reed Richards and connects back to the first issue of Ultimate Invasion, which you can check out the video I did for that here on the channel, linked right here. But basically, after the Maker establishes this portal to Earth 6160 and goes back in time and starts messing with crucial events, like when we saw him capture the spider that was meant to bite Peter Parker as a teenager, we see that he also threw the Fantastic Four's launch shuttle off course and sabotaged their ascent. And in doing this, he actually killed the other members in the process, everyone besides Reed. So with Johnny Storm, Ben Grimm, and Susan all dead, Reed is actually charged for quote-unquote causing their deaths and is sentenced to an eternity in prison with the Maker himself. Because remember, he's at the top of the food chain. He is the hierarchy. He manipulated everything so that he could become the leader of the world, and no one can question him, meaning he can sentence anyone to anything no matter what, and no one can do anything about it. So in this prison, the one that we saw in Ultimate Invasion, time does not work the same way. Time moves very fast and then very slow. Things change quickly and then slowly. None of it makes any sense. And unfortunately, that makes it a lot worse when Reed is endlessly tortured and brainwashed by the Maker inside this prison. And basically we see over the course of this long, elaborate torture sequence, Reed is convinced that he brings doom to all those he loves, just like with the shuttle, and is manipulated into taking on the persona of Doom. All of this because 616 Reed Richards, the man who defeated the Maker, said that he would have gone back in time and made sure that the Maker never existed if given the chance to do it all over again. So when you see that moment and you see the Maker say, "I'll remember that," he meant it. And this is what it manifested as. The minute he got to this new universe, he made sure to erase Mr. Fantastic from existence in the most personal, brutal way possible, just out of spite for someone else entirely, from a different universe, completely unrelated, and likely out of insecurity that this Reed would also be able to defeat him the same way. So with this version of Ultimate Doom and the Maker, we have a Doctor Doom who's good and a Reed Richards that's bad. Then we move on to issue number 5. This one basically just introduces this version of Ultimate Hawkeye, and I'm gonna be honest, the story in this one didn't really warrant its own issue in my opinion. It was just the introduction of a completely different character. It's not Clint. Apparently Clint, threw away the suit and then he picked it up. This issue just kind of went around in circles and didn't really have a story to it. That's just me. I don't know about you guys. Let me know your opinions on it down in the comments below. I felt like this was kind of one of the weaker issues of the series, even though I do kind of like Dennis Camp going in a different direction with this character. Then in issue number 6, we have this very brief, very pathetic meetup with the Ultimates versus the Hulk. This issue is kind of the second boss fight with one of the members from the Maker's Secret Council. In the first issue, they fought Captain Britain. It was like a really cool debut of the team, but this one is not nearly as triumphant for this group. This issue is the first time that all of the Ultimates members unite. Everybody that's been introduced since even before the series actually started. A lot of those one-off issues where they introduced Thor, they introduced Sif, they introduced the Human Torch, stuff like that. All of these members now are here to fight the same fight, and they go up against the Hulk. And unfortunately, the Hulk wipes the floor with them. Really, they just get beaten. That's all there is to it. It was a whole issue of them getting absolutely floored. All the unbridled rage from characters like She-Hulk amounts to nothing, and Tony is nearly killed, forcing Doom to teleport them all back involuntarily to prevent everyone from being killed. Then we move on to issue number 7. This is kind of the anniversary again, like we saw in the first issue of Ultimate Spider-Man, of the whole event that was blamed on Tony Stark. This is because this marks the point where we're in real time, a year into the Ultimate Universe in these series being published, which is really, really cool. So after this absolutely disastrous fight, the Ultimates just kind of start to decompress and lay low, going out into the world, doing their own thing and blending in, just commiserating amongst each other. Steve and Jim Hammond, the Human Torch, go to a bar. Hank and Janet go to the memorial site. Tony is still on life support where She-Hulk and Doom watch over him. Hawkeye breaks into an Oscorp defense warehouse and blows up all the cargo. America incapacitates police officers that are attacking a group group of protesters in another country, and Thor and Sif actually head out, leave Earth, and start setting up a revolution across the 9 realms to take down the supposed All-Father Loki. In issue number 8, we see the far-stretching ramifications of what the Maker did by going back in time and manipulating the hero's origins. By doing this, he not only affected the lives of the characters up to this point, but he also starts a butterfly effect that has begun unraveling the future that was stable before, right? The original timeline had its future set in stone, but when the Maker changed everything, this new timeline started to overwrite all of the lives in the future. When the Ultimates are sent by Doom to scout out an empty cornfield where temporal energy was detected, they're met by the sudden appearance of the Guardians of the Galaxy, consisting of a very different looking version of Star-Lord, Cosmo, Ultimate Nullifier, or in this case, just Nullifier. Sorry. And last but not least, Captain Marvel. Upon meeting these Guardians, Team learns that America was originally one of these Guardians in the future, but her memory's been tampered with after all this time spent in the present. In the 61st century, the Guardians are a network of super protectors, thousands of cosmic beings looking after 400 million planets. However, because the Maker started throwing crucial temporal events out of whack, one Guardian, Captain Universe, started to feel it, and suddenly the entire group knew that something was wrong with time. In hopes of fixing it, certain Guardians began traveling back in time to take on the Maker and try and fix what was ruined, but almost none ever made it back. So with the ripple effect already started and catching up, creation racing to replace their reality to match the new past, the Guardians all had to unite and consider their options together, ultimately deciding to form a cosmic ark, kind of like Noah's Ark, to sail away from the timeline, escape time itself. This would allow them to get everyone they knew and cared about from that century on board and safely stashed away outside the collapsing timeline until they could figure out a way to get through this. This gave them a space of about 100 years to work with before they'd start to become endangered again. Unfortunately, that's exactly what happened. Once they escaped creation, an army stationed just outside time and space attacked them. We know this army now to be Kang's from Ultimate Invasion, as we saw. While fighting this army, the integrity of the ship began to fall apart and they were forced to head straight back into whatever this overwritten timeline would look like, putting all of them in danger but also trying to avoid danger. Upon re-entry, the unstable molecules of the ship and the existence of beings from a different existence caused a massive temporal explosion that sent America and everyone else crashing throughout time, being sent forward and back through history. But the reason that nobody could get to America until now at this point in the timeline is because she fell into a blocked off portion of the timeline. For some reason, 1963 to 2024 is inaccessible to those with time travel capabilities who are from the future. And if I had to guess, this is likely because the Maker started changing a lot of world events after Cap went into the ice, which caused the timeline to more quickly solidify in the subsequent decades, meaning he kind of commands this time period, and nobody can really enter and mess with it back. So now, even understanding her origin, America still rejects their help and insists on staying here in this time with the Ultimates to prepare for the Maker's arrival in 10 months. With this, Captain Marvel sighs and gives her a temporal flare so that they can find her if she ever needs any help before they head off back into time and space to re-recruit the other lost Guardians. And before she leaves, she warns America that she's making a mistake because they've already seen this new timeline's future and they know that the Maker wins. Which then brings us to issue number 9. At the time of recording this, the most recent issue, but I think 10 will be out by the time this goes up. And this issue sees the origin of Ultimate Luke Cage, which is really exciting. And in the same way that Ultimate Doom's origin kind of played out, this issue jumps around in time a bit, starting at 2005, where Luke Cage is already in prison in handcuffs being sentenced. 1 year to life? A child version of Luke Cage says, but I'm only 15. The man across the table says, it's actually very progressive. You could be out in as soon as 1 year. Previously, this would have carried a mandatory 5-year sentence. But I don't even know what I've been convicted of, Luke says. Well, neither do I, but convicted you were. It was an administrative trial. I don't really know the details. But look, I don't want to get into a whole discussion about it, okay? I'm just here to tell you what's happening. Carl Lucas, or quote-unquote Luke Cage, you're going away for a while. And then we jump ahead to February 2025 at the Gordium Correctional Facility, where a grown, more familiar-looking Luke Cage is being walked into a new prison by soldiers who look like they're from AIM, but not exactly. We get some exposition on the intercom overhead. Lucas Cage, welcome to Gordium Correctional Facility, a Midas Group penitentiary specializing in the for-profit prison space. Just a reminder, your global citizenship has been officially revoked. Inside these walls, you do not have any rights of any kind. Obey the guards, follow the the rules, stay out of trouble, and there will be no problems. Midas is proud to keep costs down and our communities safe. We hope your stay will be productive. And we see these apparently Midas guards at the front desks talking. Hey, did you hear about this riot in New Brunswick? Yeah, the other one says. They're trying to keep it hush-hush, but I heard the inmates are still in control of the facility. God, that's the second facility this year. What's this world coming to? We jump back to 2006 at Seagate Penitentiary, where a young Luke Cage is being beaten by the guards and held to the ground. In response to this, he starts hitting the gym a little bit more. They beat him again the next day. He lifts the next day. They beat him the next day. He lifts the next day. And the cycle continues and continues. We jump back to 2025 at Gordium, where Luke walks up to a man with rat tail hair and knocks him out with one punch. Whoa, the other dude in the lunch line says. He had a knife, Luke answers. He holds out his hand, and the other man shakes it. Luke Cage. Danny Rand. They look down at this man out cold on the ground, and Danny says, Do I know you from somewhere? You ever do time in Seagate? I've done time all over. What was this about? Luke asks. Honestly, I have no idea. In this place, it's so easy to offend someone without even knowing it. And they get back into the lunch line. Listen, man, Danny says, thanks for the help, but just a word of advice from someone that's been here a while. Mind your own business. Watch your own back, because nobody else is gonna watch it for you. And Luke grins, tossing an apple up in the air. Nah, that's not my style. We jump back to 2010, back at Seagate. Years have passed, and Luke is still being beaten by these guards. In response to this, he reads. They beat him again the next day. He reads. They beat him again the next day. He reads. And on and on and on. Back to 2025, we get some more exposition over the speakers about this prison and how it works. Here at Gordium, we're innovating our way to a better tomorrow. One of Midas's many inventions in the prison space is our mandatory worker employment program. And we get this little montage of Luke working on stuff while conversing with Danny and some of the other inmates in there. What is happening here is modern day slavery, Luke says to Danny. Nothing more, nothing less. And the speaker continues. Inmates have a chance to learn useful skills, and Midas subsidiaries have access to an almost inexhaustible pool of labor. Slavery is social death. It is to be forever cut off from your context, from community. It is to have never been born. They have made us into non-people. They say it's about justice. They say it's about law, but it's not about any of that. Danny perks up. So what is it all about then? And in the most cliche, obvious, hint hint, wink wink, finger gun way, Luke holds up a black pawn and says, it's about power, man. We jump back to 2014, where the guards are brutalizing Luke again, after he's bulked up and made himself a lot smarter. We hear you're a real go-getter, Cage. Forming your own prison gang? It's just a reading group, he says, before they swing a baton at him again, and they call him something I can only assume is a racial slur, considering what they say next. You're a troublemaker, a dangerous element. It's in your file, and they start beating him with the batons until he bleeds. It's been in your file since the day you were born. And they beat him and beat him until he's on the ground out cold. And they walk off saying, stupid convicts never learn. Back to 2025, Luke is still giving a speech. There are no good pigs. It doesn't matter the skin color or what god you worship. The only distinction that matters in here is the distinction between pig and prisoner. Us and them. The guards are our only enemies here. Our most immediate struggle is with them. And through them, the unjust system is upheld. We struggle for nothing more and nothing less than control over our own lives. If we are to succeed in that struggle, we will have to fight for the life of the man standing next to us, each of us, as if it was our own, because it is. Believe me, if they come for him one morning, they'll come for you that night. We then jump back to a more immediate past, January 2024, where Luke was still at Seagate, where other prisoners are talking about Luke. How many times does that make in the infirmary since Cage got here? I lost count. He must have broke every bone in his body a dozen times. They say he's unbreakable. And we see Luke in his cell when a box arrives, electricity flying off everywhere, and he looks at it, fascinated. Luke's speech continues in 2025. The people, whether inside these walls or outside, have no control over our own lives, but we can take it. First, control of this facility, and then our own futures. The only difference between the inside and the outside is one of maximum and minimum security. And we see them start to formulate a plan to break out. The system cannot stand. The world can no longer afford it. In fact, it never could. It cannot be reformed because the system resists reformation. We must transform it in the revolutionary sense. We must take power back for the people, many of whom are going to be afraid at first. Afraid of us. And that's okay. We're going to scare them, not to death, but to life. And we see Luke back in 2024 after receiving this mystery box. And we see it's one of the boxes that Iron Lad and the Ultimates had sent out. And he receives his message. Luke Cage, Iron Lad says, this is for you. This is the catalyst that will allow you to gain unbreakable skin and unbelievable strength. Together, we will free this world. And as Luke puts it up to his chest, he feels himself transform. Back in 2025, all the prisoners are back in chains, walking around the courtyard as the guards condescend to him. A prison break? You really thought you could hide a prison break from us? You can't trust criminals. If any of you could be trusted, you wouldn't be criminals now, would you? See, it's just your nature. That's why you're in here. Just because you break a law doesn't make you a criminal, and you don't have to break a law to be a criminal. A criminal is just something that you are, something you were. See, in cases like this, it's strict Midas policy to use lethal force, to discourage revolutionaries. That's what happens when you lose your basic human rights. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't fill you with holes, convict. You know what? I'm not ashamed to say it. I love my job. And they line all of these guys up, chained together, half naked, outside, guns pointed at them, and get ready to put them to death. But as the Midas guards unload, firing at all of them, Luke Cage suddenly resists, and the other prisoners duck down, avoiding the gunfire. And when it's all done, Luke looks up and smiles. Alright, gentlemen, we're taking over now. And suddenly the prison break begins. The revolution starts. Luke Cage and everyone else taking over the prison by force. All power to the people, he says, and all the other prisoners shout it back at him. And just by flexing his muscles, Luke is able to break all the chains wrapped around his body. He slams one fist into the ground and sends the Midas guards flying. We then get a flashback to June 2024, where Iron Lad visits Luke Cage after the first prison riot. Congratulations on taking the prison and freeing yourselves, Mr. Cage, and welcome to the Ultimates. You're one of the very few of the first generation who actually worked out. We can get you out of here, but Luke interrupts him. Actually, I think I can do more good inside here than out. And we get more of this voiceover as he's walked into the next prison. I don't understand, Tony says. After all you've endured? Because of all that I've endured, Luke says. I know that I can't get free until everybody is free. And then for the last time, we jump forward to February 2025 at Gordium Correctional, where they have taken over yet another prison. And I just gotta say, probably one of the coolest origins in the Ultimate Universe by far, if not the coolest, because oh my god. First of all, the way they opened up talking about the multiple riots beforehand, with Luke being ushered in and him just staying quiet, they knew exactly what they were doing. They were sitting here talking about it, saying, oh my god, what is the world coming to? While ushering in the singular agent, the reason for all of those revolutions, not knowing how powerful he actually is. And also, that's another thing, is the power. One of the coolest things about this version of Luke Cage, in my opinion, is the fact that he did everything before he actually got his superpower. To me, that is just amazing. To build this guy up, to show his resolve after being beaten down and trapped in a situation that he had no control over. Obviously, we know that that's the Maker, right, in his doing. The same way that he threw the Fantastic Four's ship off course and had Reed sentenced for eternity where he tortured him. But instead of lying down and taking it, he got stronger. He used that as an excuse every day to fight in his own way before actually getting the power. They encapsulated everything right with the character in this one issue and told such an amazing story. This is an awesome origin. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. That is the video. Thank you for watching.